Butcher, the baker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group. Sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my songs. Butcher, the baker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in.
Well, sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then it makes no difference what group I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people.
There is a blue one that can't accept the green one, for living with the fat one, trying to be a skinny one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. And Scooby Dooby 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 Doo. Sha sha. We got to live together.
I am no better, and neither are you. We are the same, whatever we do. You love me, you hate me, you know me, and then still can't figure out the bag I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people. Yeah, yeah.
There is a long head that doesn't like the short hair, for being such a rich one that will not help the poor one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. And Scooby Dooby Doo. Sha sha. We got to live together. There is a yellow one that won't accept the black one, that won't accept the red one, that won't accept the white one. Different strokes for different folks, and so on and so on. And Scooby Dooby Doo. Sha sha. I am everyday people.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Let's stop sharing for a bit. Welcome, everyone, for coming along today, this evening, whatever time it is in your part of the world. I hope you've been at some festival events. I hope you've enjoyed lots of festival events. We're now in our 4th week of the festival. Somehow, 4 weeks doesn't sound like long until you start running an 800 event festival, and then you realize you haven't slept. We actually had a trustees meeting on Tuesday, and everyone looked like they were half asleep. So, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll get to the slides in a little bit. I hope you enjoyed the song. I hope you got up and did a little bit of a dance, because we're all spending far too much time sitting down. We really need a little bit of energy. I'm going to do a little bit of an intro to the festival, and I'm going to share the screen and do some slides and tell you a little bit about the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. 20 years of Agile. I think that's worth a happy anniversary. So if you want to come off mute, all of you, and say happy anniversary and then go back on mute, that'd be wonderful. So 3, 2, 1. Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary!
Isn't that amazing?
Anniversary!
Right. We're now up to 800 events. It's unbelievable. For me, when we started this, 50 events was great. Ellen was one of the first people, that I talked to about this. And, when we were thinking, I thought a couple of events a day would be amazing. So couple of things on that. We've got the website there, so if you want to know, so there's some more great events coming up, and we're going to have a kind of a. We're also going to have a session saying after the festival what's next. We've got a Twitter bit there, so my Agile 20 Reflect. If any of the events of tonight or anything are interesting, feel free to kind of rage tweet in there. Okay, 800 events across the world, and this is how they're broken down. Completely amazed and blown away by the amount of Spanish events, Spanish language events coming out of South America, Africa as well. Lots of events in Africa. Russia, that was an amazing one. Russia takes most of January off because their Christmas is after hours. So we were kind of thinking there'd be nothing coming from Russia, and then all of a sudden, like the biggest Russian bank gets involved. We have an agile event for mums in Russian, and 300 mums turn up. Absolutely fascinating. Just everywhere we've had events all over the globe. Really, really exciting. Okay, now this is important. I think currently we've raised about £2,500, and that's paying for a lot of the festival and a lot of the festival things. We've got a target of 5,000. If you could help us make that, that's going to really help with the archiving and the showing of the slides and everything, so people can access this. We've got this idea that this is a great celebration. We capture everything, and then people around the world for free can see what they missed. Remember, on 800 events, if you go to 20, you've only got to 3% of the festival. So to catch up, these videos are going to be wonderful. So go to the GoFundMe and do support us. And if you have been there before, thank you very much. The other thing is we take Let's Be a Safe Place really, seriously. We've got a community policy there. Have a look at it. If you think been affected by any issues, or you think that things haven't gone well, please have a look at that. There's an email there that you can contact with anything you're worried about. Anything that's happening in the event today, we'll try and sort in the event today. But that's a central place where we can have things logged. Okay. So today Evan is going to be the talent wrangler, as I like to call him, and he's going to hold the fishbowl, and I'll tell you a little bit about what a fishbowl is. Evan Laybourne of the Business Agility Institute. What I think would be good is, as you come into the fishbowl at an appropriate time, if someone's talking, don't do it immediately, but do introduce yourself. And what we're probably interested in, to put your comments in context, is who you are, what organization you're with, and in any kind of particular concerns you have. So Evan, when he introduces himself, will obviously say he's with the Business Agility Institute. Evan kindly agreed to do this. Evan's got a huge network of people. Evan's one of the kindest and nicest people I know. Been a great supporter from this. I also know that he doesn't like being front of camera, so it was a bit of a dragging to get him to do this. But he's such a lovely man. Also here we've got a couple of trustees, and the trustees run the festival. If you have a look at the website and see the trustees, they're all amazing people. I'd recommend you link in with them. So we have the wonderful Yusuf Dean, we have Shelby Wilson, and we have Sathpal Singh, known to Sath, to his friends. And we're going to be facilitating in the background. So if there's anything or any concerns, feel free to message us. We're going to be talking about the rules of the fishbowl. If they break down, because perhaps someone's new in and they haven't seen the rules, we'll be having a word with some people just to make this work. Okay, some fun stuff to do. I'm going to put these slides out. Okay, we're gonna have a board. It's got a jam board. It's got 3 things. If you hear any good ideas, just put a post-it sticker on the jam board, the first one, and we're rating them from cool ideas to good ideas to awesome pirate ideas, and that's going to help us capture ideas that we might talk about that we could take forward. And let's all go into this in the spirit of assuming best intentions, not worrying too much about the past, but let's take this as an inflection point and look at the future. Some more events that you can go to that are in the meetup. One is we're doing a remembering event for Mike Beadle. For those of you who don't know, Mike was very much involved in the development of Scrum, and he was at Snowbird. and he was sadly brutally murdered a couple of years ago. So that's for if anyone who wants to come along and remember Mike, that would be great just to remember that signature of the manifesto. We had a great opening ceremony, and we're going to have a festival fiesta forever, which is kind of like a closing ceremony, but there's so much there's been so much push to keep doing something. Closing seemed a final word. So anyway, it's a nice celebration. We're going to look at the facts, the stats, the people that have been touched by the festival. I know the trustees will tell you we've been overwhelmed by the good stories that came across, and I see many people on the call today that have been affected. They really told their great stories. And then on the 7th of March, after we've had a rest and got some sleep, and the bags under my eyes have gone, we're going to have a what's next, and that's really saying we've had a great festival. We've asked lots of interesting questions. We've met new people. Where do we go next? Right, I'm going to cover off what a fishbowl is. So, fishbowls are really a way of getting participation into discussion, keeping a discussion that we all watch like television, but allowing people to come up. So it isn't really like Q&A where you're kind of waiting to talk and then you maybe put a question to the speakers. So we are going to have the moderator Evan, who will be there permanently, and we have our 3 additional speakers. And if someone else wants to come in, what we're going to do is that you would turn your camera on, and when you turn your camera on, we'll know that you want to come in, and then one of the speakers who are in the bowl will turn the camera off and just go back into the audience. So that's how we're really going to work it. Cameras on means you're in the fishbowl. Cameras off mean you're in the audience. And really how we're going to work this is Evan's going to be moderating. He's got some starter questions, but we can also take questions through chat and other bits and pieces. But for the first question, he'd like just to keep the people we've got there till we get round the first question. And so a few participants start the fishbowl conversation while the rest of the audience sits around and listens to the main discussion. Every 2 to 10 minutes, any member of the audience can join the conversation, while an existing member of the fishbowl voluntarily leaves and frees up another chair. So what you might find is there's people in the audience with a specific interest in some of the questions that may want to come in, and some of the people in the fishbowl might be less interested in that and want to come out. Okay, and we're going to try and do it on Zoom. It's not ideal, far easier to do physically, but then again, we wouldn't get as much talent as we got on this call from around the world if we were just trying to get everyone to get a plane and get together. That's another thought. This is probably the most climate-friendly festival that's ever been. Okay, we'll get that flow going. We're going to run this for about we're going to run this to 9, and then we're going to have a 10-minute break. And at the 10-minute break, we're going to try and get people into meeting rooms to talk about stuff. What was exciting about the first bit, and who's here, and just try and understand each other again, just for 10 minutes. And then we'll come back, and then we'll restart the fishbowl. And we think that will keep things a little bit lively as well. We'll be dropping these out. Anyone who joins late, we'll be dropping these instructions out for everyone as well. So again, can I ask everyone to mute their microphone? And anyone who isn't in the starting fishbowl to turn their cameras off, and I'll do mine in a second. Evan's then going to talk about this and introduce it. One of the things, and then we're going to do introductions. So you might not know who the people in the fishbowl are, and we'll do some introductions. There is an option on your laptops. I'm not sure if it's on the phone, but you can actually hide non-video participants. And if you do that, that means that all the people that are on the call that haven't got the camera on, you won't see. And the way that works with Zoom is it means that you'll get a much bigger image to watch, and I think that'll be a better experience for you. Okay. And that's us. So I'm going to stop sharing. And we've still got people in, so and I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm going to mute, and then I'm going to turn my camera off, and then it's over to Evan.
All right. Good, well, in my case, morning from, well, it's still dark outside, so not so sunny Melbourne, Australia. It is Friday for me, so it is, however, 6 a.m. in the morning or 7 a.m. in the morning. So as much as this would be a Friday drinks, it's just coffee. For the next hour and a half, little under 2 hours.
A little reminder, sorry, if you're not
Yep.
in the fishbowl, could you turn your cameras off, please? So that's Scott, Mirko, Chris, Nazmia, and Chris, if you just turn your camera off, that's great.
And don't worry, you
And
will
Mike.
be in the fishbowl.
And Mike, if you could turn your camera off as well, thank you.
So when Scott and I had the conversation about putting this together, there was actually, part of the conversation wasn't about making this a public event. Right? It was literally having a closed private conversation with professional associations, those organizations who are the custodians of capital A Agile, as well as, and of course, there's the Agile to my Reflect, so there's the focus, but also those who are the custodians of the friends of Agile, those ideas and ways of working and frameworks and methods and systems and tools and all those wonderful, wonderful things that we rely on to create Agile. In my case, we're talking Agile organizations, but just agility in general. And Scott convinced me that this should be a sort of an open public discussion, hence the Fishbowl format and hence what's being created here. So I have invited Bjarte, Ellen, Howard, and is Mark online? Maybe, maybe not. I have invited, I'll let them introduce themselves in a second. I've invited them to be the starting panelists, right? Not because they're the best, not because they're the biggest, though I know Howard, I'm sorry, but because they have a message, because there is, they form an integral and in many cases foundational part of the community that we all live in. I've also invited many of you to join in the audience, well, not so much in the audience, but to participate. We have, and I'm going to try and, I'm just looking at who's actually dialed in. People like Mirko Kleiner talking about lean agile procurement, Chris James, scaled agile. I saw Todd there, Kanban University. Layla, and I'm not sure if I see Padmini talking, representing lean in agile. I have a small stutter, so sometimes I have trouble with names, my apologies. Michael from Holacracy One, right? Where else are we? Radhika, representing Agile Business Consortium out of the UK, the old DSDM consortium. And many more as people keep moving in and out. I think there will be more, and there are more. That's not to say that those people that I have asked to join the conversation are the only ones who can join the conversation. This is an open fishbowl. Anyone here has a legitimate voice and a story to tell. So I invite each of you to join into the fishbowl. Scott has shared the rules. Please, on camera when you're in the fishbowl, off camera when you're not. And we'll deal with conflicts and collisions as they arise, and that's normal. I will ask, I'm going to ask 2 questions of the starting panel. I would ask that we let them address the first question first, and from the second question onwards we will completely freely open up to everybody to come in and join and share your insights and to contribute to the conversation. So a couple of things which I wanted, the question that I'm going to start with, but a little context. When I asked Bjarte to join the starting panel, or the starting lineup, I should say, he reminded me of the scene in Monty Python, The Life of Brian, of all of the, was it the People's Liberation Army of Palestine, the Palestine People's Army, and just the conflict and the arguments around all of these factions. And of course, it's played for comedic effect. Right? But we have this situation today. We have all of these alliances, and I use that with a little a. Sorry, Scrum Alliance, Agile Alliance, but all of these alliances and groups and factions that have emerged throughout the community. And the community of 2021 is vastly different of the community of 2011 and of course 2001. So my opening question for Ellen, Howard, and Bjarte is, who is your customer? Who is your community, and how are you serving them? This is sort of serving as a bit of an introduction to who you are and what you're doing. So Ellen, would you like to kick us off?
Sure, I'll happily jump in. So Agile Alliance is a nonprofit membership organization, and I want to put that front and center because a lot of people actually don't know that about Agile Alliance. Most people know us because they've attended Agile 20X. You know, the big Agile conference. And that's one of the things that we do for the Agile community. But in terms of who our user is, I think of our users, first of all, as our members, but as the Agile, but beyond that, the Agile community at large. Our goal is to be the big tent where all of the people who are interested in Agile, who are interested in learning more about Agile, who are interested in sharing what they've learned about Agile, who are interested in coming together so that we can collectively start to change the industry, to change the way we work on a larger scale. Agile Alliance hopes to be the place where people can come together and have those conversations about what's working, what's not, how do we do this? How do we do this together? You know?
And that was really, really good PR speak. Go deeper. Like how are you serving the community? Come on.
How are we serving the community? We are serving the community by, well, let's start off with the obvious, offering events. We've been doing the Agile 20X conference for, I don't know if we've been calling it Agile 20X for 20 years, but I know there's been a conference for 20 years. And that's been a focal point for the community to come together. We're broadening the set of events and supporting a range of events all around the world to create places for Agile practitioners to come together all over the place. Another way that we serve the community is that we get a lot of content that comes out of those events. There's a lot of presentations, there's a lot of research papers and experience reports, and we've collected this huge library of material and make it available to people so that they can use that for their own learning. That's part of how we serve the community. One thing that I'm really interested in, and this is one of the changes that we're sort of focusing on more now, because I've only been leading Agile Alliance for, I guess it's about 6 months now. Could be 6 months, could be 20 years. Time is getting all wibbly wobbly these days, but it actually hasn't been that long a time. But one of the things that I'm really interested in, and in fact, this is how I came to be involved in Agile Alliance in the first place, is really how are we creating the connection between those different pockets of the Agile community? How are we connecting Agile practitioners who are particularly interested or invested in a particular way of thinking about things or doing things? How are we bringing people together from around the world to talk to each other? That I'll be quite blunt. I'm not sure that's what we have focused on organizationally in the past. A lot of our focus was on, hey, let's have this really great conference. I'm really interested in broadening that conversation to the other 360 days a year.
I love it.
Is that non-marketing enough?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, because I'm Australian, I'm a little bit laissez-faire, laid back, which means I'm going to push on some things. Howard, who pushes back on me almost as much as I push on him. Talk to me. How does Scrum Alliance serve the community? Who's your customer?
I'm going to push back and say I go third, Evan.
I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. Bjarte, you're welcome. Please jump in.
He's on mute.
As always, yes.
Yes. Let me start with responding from a more personal point of view, because in that perspective, I don't think in terms of customers and users. I mean, I just want to make a difference, a positive difference. It is as simple and as difficult as that. When it comes to beyond budgeting, I think we are maybe the odd one out here of the communities, because despite our name, and you might think that finance is kind of our main target group, we have actually from day one been aiming at the executive level and those guys who run organizations at the top. So in that sense, we are maybe a bit different.
For those who don't know much, so I deliberately asked you to join the opening panel in large part because everyone knows Scrum Alliance, everyone knows Agile Alliance, but beyond budgeting has been around for a lot for longer.
Yes.
To be blunt. And your both your personal contribution as well as Beyond Budgeting community's contribution to the broader Agile community and the much, much broader business community has been profound and understated. So maybe give us a 1 minute, what is it that you stand for?
Well, I guess a lot of people actually don't know me, so a very quick introduction. I work for an energy company called Equinor, Scandinavia's largest company. I'm also the chairman of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, and I am a finance guy by education. And my journey into this is about, somebody said that I haven't gone where I intended to go, but I think I have ended up where I needed to be. I think those are wise words, and that's exactly what happened. Because again, I started out in finance 25 years ago, had an opportunity to kick out the budget in a large European company, moved in that company from finance to HR, which was part of the journey. And a little bit later, I got a call from a guy that you probably all know, Bjarte, who asked me to speak at what I thought was an IT conference in Finland. And I couldn't understand why these guys wanted to hear about beyond budgeting. I thought they were probably thinking about how to negotiate fatter IT budgets. But I went to that conference, did my session, and met a lot of great people, and many of them are still my friends. So this has been a gradual development as such. But beyond budgeting is a misleading name. It is business. We've been about business agility for the last 25 years. But that label didn't exist back then. And at the time, there was no contact whatsoever between our communities. And that has fortunately changed. The fact that we are sitting here is an example of that. So, thanks.
All right. I love it. Thank you. And Howard, all right, you can't escape this time.
You said everybody knows Scrum Alliance. I'm Howard Sublett. I'm the Chief Product Owner for the Scrum Alliance. Who's our customer? We are a nonprofit or a not-for-profit in what they call in different types of countries, but by rules, like our customer is our member. They need to be a member of our organization for me to provide services for them. And by the services, we're trying to provide the people that are within our organization. There's a little over 1.38 million, I think I just looked this morning, with the tools and techniques, principles and practices they need to help reshape their world of work. We also provide a lot of funds to bring people together to try to learn from each other. In the last 5 years alone, the last 5 years, we've given over $15 million to places around the world to bring people together physically. And in the last year, we spent a lot for bringing people together virtually as well. But we used to rent a lot of venues and pay for a lot of beer and pizza for user groups to come together. But those excess funds that we have, we do those things to help grow and expand the presence of agility in the world. That whole tagline of transforming the world of work, that's really what we're about. So for us, there is no stakeholders that are making a lot of money and no one's buying a house on the Cape. All of us are just salaried employees. Like, we're here to serve our community, our members.
I like that. And Scrum Alliance doesn't always have historically didn't always have the best reputation in the community. So for the last couple of years under Howard's leadership, just from my own personal perspective, Scrum Alliance has turned into an organization that was the organization you were kind of ashamed to be affiliated with, to the one that there is a level of pride in what they're doing and what they're creating. So
I will have to pay you that $500 there. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate that. It's an honor. It really is.
We've got a GoFundMe. I can say nice things. We've got a GoFundMe if you want to put that kind of money around.
Ah.
All right. Now we're going to open up. So I'm going to start asking the hard questions. And obviously, this is where I do invite not only those I've requested to be part of the conversation, but also those who would like to be part of the conversation are welcome to join in. And as this is a fishbowl, as one person steps up, as they turns their video on, then one of the starting lineup will turn their video off, and this will rotate through as people join in, join out. Ellen may drop off, Ellen may come back in as the conversation goes in areas of passion and areas of focus. So I'm going to start with a question around ethics. And this is a hot topic right now, especially in a post-2020 world. We are a community that has had issues with this in the past, both in terms of professional ethics and obviously the technology heritage. The people who look like me are more likely to be on stage than anyone else, and that's a bit of a shame. So, but even beyond that, there's obviously Agile Alliance is working on the ethical standards for Agile coaches. So ethics has become, no, it's always been important, but it's perhaps become a little bit more visible in 2020. So what I want to know is, in your experience and what you're doing with your organizations, what is the top ethical challenge that you see facing the community and that you're struggling with? Not so much like what ethical challenge have you solved? I want to know what ethical challenges you're struggling with right now that you're trying to solve, but the solution is somewhere over there in the horizon. So that's a big nut of a question. Who would like to take a first crack at it?
I know one of the areas for us that we struggled with is we always have like 2 people roll off of our board and 2 people to roll onto our board, and the requirements to be on the board are pretty high. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into being in a board for an organization our size, and we're always trying to ensure geographic diversity of backgrounds, ethnicities, everything else, like to make sure we really embrace DEI. But quite often, the number of candidates that apply for those positions, we just can't find the pool of the right people. So we actually engaged the last 2 years a professional recruiting firm to be able to try to find those people out there that have the skills that we need to have the board experience, that have the background in business, to have those kind of things to where they can serve on our board. This year we made I think honestly, we made a few people really upset because when we got the applications for all of the people that were running for a community voted board member, we only selected female candidates as potential new board members. So we had basically our whole community got to decide between 3 women. So we kind of stacked the deck because we really needed that diversity in our board. So we had some men that looked like me that were not happy that they filled out their application, and they may not have been considered for that, but truly we needed that swing within our board for that voice that was important for us. But we're always seem to be struggling in Asia and in other areas to find representation of our community with the right skill sets and stuff. And I don't know that we can ever get it right when you have to have 9 people that have to represent an entire global population of backgrounds and experiences.
If I could follow on here, I'd like to address something that it's at least a dilemma, but I think it has maybe some ethical perspectives around it as well. And we're talking about certifications. In Beyond Budgeting, we have made a conscious choice that we are not offering certifications, and of course it is a dilemma, because how do you fund yourself? But I think it is one of the challenges of the Agile community that from somebody coming from the outside, it could look at least part of it like almost a commercial machine, which I think might not be the intention, but for me there are some ethical perspectives to that in some cases. I don't want to offend anyone here, and I hope I didn't, but I think we need to. I assume the point was to have an open discussion.
I do want to offend people in a very polite and open and inviting way. But if we can't address the elephants in the room, then if we can't face the demons of our own nature and our own making, then we're never going to get better. So I do invite that conversation, please, and those professional ethics, so. Ellen, maybe this is a step to talk about the code of professional ethics that the Alliance is working on.
Yeah, this is
Could
something.
Could someone step down? We've had Leila come into the room. So Howard,
Fantastic.
perhaps, or
Yep.
No, Leila, that's fine.
Yeah.
Come in.
Leila, please stand in.
Sure. Can I, if I can just talk for a moment about the code of ethics? It's one of the initiatives that Agile Alliance is working on. So this has been a conversation that's been going on for, I think, about 2 years now. And it started because there were some prominent folks in the Agile community who looked around at the way we are doing, the way we are showing up in the world, the way we are doing business, the way we are supporting Agile in a commercial sense often, and said, you know, there's a lot that's wrong with what's going on. We need to have a conversation across industries about how do we hold ourselves more accountable for the work that we do in how we promote Agile. And it's been a great conversation because we've brought together, I'm going to give a shout out to Craig and Shane, who led this initiative, have brought together representatives from many of the organizations that are, prominent players, that are commercial players in the Agile space, and said, hey, let's agree. Let's identify some of the ethical concerns that we have, and let's come up with a code that people can self-identify with, can sign and say, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to behave that way. In addition to the issues that Howard and Bjarte identified, I mean, the diversity and inclusion and making sure that all of the voices have an opportunity to be at the table, this is a critical issue. The question, the question of certifications, and I think, I'll just say that's also a critical issue as well. That's not the one that I want to dig into. But really, the thing that I think we really need to think about as Agile practitioners, this is something that, at an organizational level we need to think about, but also as individuals out in the world trying to help change the world with Agile, is really thinking about, are we listening to the people we're working with to understand their needs and helping them come to solutions versus imposing a solution? Here, if you just follow my way of thinking, if you follow these rules, these guidelines, this way of being Agile, it will solve all your problems. And I think this is something we really have to talk about as a community, because I think it has collectively bitten us badly, in that there are a lot of organizations out there where Agile has become a dirty word, because they have taken a kick at the Agile can. They have tried with some degree, I'll say with varying degrees of enthusiasm and authenticity, but they have tried to adopt Agile or undergo an Agile transformation or become Agile, or however they phrased it, and it didn't work out very well for them. And they walked away in a lot of pain and having created a lot of resentment that ends up getting directed at agility in general. And I think this is something that we need to collectively talk about more publicly and figure out, how do we address this?
Spot on. And maybe we can dig into your certification comment shortly, because I did have a later question about tribalism, and the factions that emerge in the communities. But Layla, would you like to step into the conversation? You're on mute. The anthem of 2020, you're on mute.
Yes, please. Okay, so this is one of my biggest frustrations with the Agile community. This idea that diversity.
Sorry. Layla, could you just quickly introduce yourself?
Okay, let's see what's
Quick
going
introduction.
on. Okay.
No.
Sorry?
Just a quick introduction.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so my name is Layla Rao, and I've been around Agile for a while, and I'm here today wearing the hat as a co-founder of Lean and Agile, which was created to solve exactly this problem, because I was looking at the community I adore and didn't see myself and people like me. And I was told, be patient, speak at conferences, get certifications. I've done all that. It's not moving, not enough. So doing more of the same is really anti-Agile that we're supposed to practice. Diversity and inclusion is not something else that we do. It should be part of who we are. And Howard, I will push back on your comment about not finding people, because I've been hearing that for 20 years. We're here. Think about how you're inviting. What do you sound like? Are you welcoming people? There are so many organizations where we onboard diversity, but they leave because we're putting the burden of diversity on these 2 or 3 people. That's not fair. So anyone who's struggling to achieve diversity, look at the culture. Who are you listening to? Who are you talking to? What do you define expertise as? What are you calling qualifications? You do not need to have 20 years board experience to be an effective member of a board. Boards need new perspectives. We know that diverse boards outperform the boards that we have. So why are we still falling back on old qualifications?
The chat is agreeing with you. The chat is blowing up. And you're right. Mercy, thank you for jumping in.
So, I mean, pretty obviously I feel strongly about this, but there are ways to fix this. This is not an insolvable problem. So here's a radical solution. Any of our expert groups, the SAFE certifications, the CSM certification trainers, can we open it up to new people? Like, why are those closed bodies? I understand why, but if we really want to change it, let's open it up to new avenues. We have so many barriers to entry in the Agile space. This is the problem we have to fix. Otherwise, we're not going to be relevant. And I will tell you, I deliberately do not use the word Agile in my work anymore because it does not reflect my values.
Ouch. And that is why we are here talking about the future. I want to come back to that, but Mercy just stepped in. So did you want to share a position here?
Yes, I want to say this is brilliant conversation. Thank you so much, Ellen, and even for asking this question. I'm a Black woman, I'm Nigerian, and I'd like to say that if I'd had 20 years experience, I probably would never have been spotted. So I want to say a lot of credit to Agile 20 Reflect that gave me a voice within the Agile community. It's not because I have 10 years, 5 years experience. I knew I was hungry. I knew I didn't have enough experience as a Black person because not many Agile organizations are operational in Africa, as you know. So I went 2,000 steps to volunteer with the Agile 20 Reflect, and I made sure I gave it my all. What I'm just trying to say, it's so important. It's not just to label diversity as a word, but it's so important to intentionally be open-minded to culture, cultural differences, the challenges. For instance, $1 to Nigerian Naira is 554. if that makes any sense. So the barrier to entry, it's literally impossible. And as a founder of Lento, that we're taking one life at a time with the goal of bridging the skill gap. I've seen the result. So if a lot of Africans are not spotlighted, given the opportunity or the platform, like Agile 20 Reflect has given us the voices, especially me. Scott was at the Nigerian event, he couldn't believe it. 17 Nigerian reenacted the manifesto, came up with 4 values, came up with 17 principles. It's unprecedented. And I don't think anybody's done it. And it's for governance. So for me, I know that it's important not to just label diversity. It's important not to lip service diversity or the and people. If you don't give them the platform, you don't let them express, you will never know that they're people like Howard that recognized when he met me first time, and I showed him the data that I have, and he was able to believe and gave cohort 1 student opportunity to get certified, waiving off the fee, thanks to the CST that gave that platform. The same with Scrum.org. Kanban University is supporting Lento. So it's the way to give us a voice rather than just label it. So thank you so much. This is more I can add. Thank you, Eva.
So one of the things, I'm not a panelist, so I will keep my voice to a minimum. We do have a research project going right now on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it actually started because we heard a story of someone who lost their job because they had a visual impairment and couldn't read Post-it notes. And so the organization became hostile or uninclusive to them because suddenly all the things that we stand for in agility became, it basically excluded him from engagement. And one of the sad things that we found in this research is that the Agile community isn't as inclusive as we talk about people and interactions, right? And yet somehow we struggle with that, right? And it is actually, I'm looking forward to publishing that research next month because it's not gonna come out as rosy for the community as I'd like. We have an empty seat if someone would like to step up, but I want to give Cynthia a moment here.
Thanks. I've had my company GSD Mindset, which GSD stands for Getting Stuff Done. And we've been in business for about 4 years. And the reason that we founded the company was because, honestly, we got tired of going to certification classes and continuing education classes and hearing theory after theory after theory after theory. And so we founded it based on a practical application of Scrum. I have a CSM from the Scrum Alliance. We wrote a handbook, not a 400-page book, about how you could apply Agile in real world business and be successful. And we actually decided if we can't teach people in one day how to do it, then it's not as simple as we thought it was. So one of the things we teach is practical application. Personally, like when the whole COVID thing started, one of the benefits was people were more available. And I think part of what I've heard is from people who teach big certification institutions, because I thought, oh, people who teach people certifications, kind of like colleges to give people degrees, have a social responsibility to make sure that people know how to apply that information when they go back to work, because it gets really sticky when people spend 2 days in a class, they come back with a brand new shiny certification, they post it on LinkedIn, and then they can't apply it to their job. And I think that whole thing has caused an issue with how people view Agile, why Agilists they get defensive, and why diversity isn't as big, because there's so many other things that now are more important. The businesses become, as they say, the Agile certification industrial complex. So for me, like I gave 2 speeches. Thank you very much, Agile 20 Reflect, one on business agility and one on personal agility, because I've done a TED talk on goal setting and achievement. And I think we need to step back a little bit and think about what it means to truly be agile. And if we understood that it was about focusing on the right things, accomplishing something now within a limited time frame, and then taking the time to reflect and make sure we are where we are in relation to where we want to be and change that, we truly would FAR go far. So for me, I just want to say, as someone who has been struggling with the whole idea of what it means to be agile and how I can help businesses become more agile, because it's more important than ever. I think everybody needs to step back and look at what we're actually training and who is training people. It costs in the United States $15,000 around to become a certified trainer. That barrier to entry is too high. And I mean, we developed our own Scrum in a Day. There's a lot of people who do, but because the Agile Industrial Complex doesn't recognize and appreciate practicality and ensuring truly that people are able to apply what they've learned, it has not succeeded in the way that they truly
Cynthia,
hoped.
it's Scott here. If we could keep the shares just a little bit shorter, we'll get more voices in.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks. I know it's kind of hard. You get on like so.
Yes,
I think that the way that I'm done.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right. So we're going to keep the conversation going around some of the ethics, but I do want to shift into the concept now, touching on the theme that I think Cynthia brought up of professional ethics. Not to say that DE&I is not important. Right? We do have, my apologies. Dove, sorry, I just realized that you stepped up. Did you have something you wanted to share there?
First of all, I was really disappointed.
Dove, we can't hear you. Can you get closer to your microphone? Very quiet.
One. Continue.
All right. We'll invite Dove back in when he sorts that out. So I want to touch now so briefly on professional ethics and to go back to a little bit about what Ellen was talking about. Oh, you back?
I think, is it better?
Yes.
So I was really disappointed of the 3 first panelists talked about the outside world as the client, as the user. They talked about the community. At maximum, they talked about the community. And I think that a big part of inclusion, a big part of a diversity is shooting to the world and not looking at our own, how do you say, navel button, right? Not looking at ourselves, but looking at what is our target and what is the best profile that we want to have to target world problems, not to target the community that addresses again and again big banks and big insurance companies and big banks and big insurance companies. So this is, I think, when we talk about diversity, we have to start facing outward and not inside. And like that was my big frustration when I heard how the 3 first panelists introduced themselves.
All right. And Maru, I saw you jumped in.
Yeah, I wanted to share something. It's not an opinion, it's just my personal experience. First of all, I hope my glasses don't offend anybody. I take this conversation very seriously. My own experience of the Agile community compared to all the other communities that I met and was part of previously in my life and my career was my experience was the most inclusive, the community that reaches out the most to people even outside, the most diverse in terms of currents of thinking. You can find people doing systemic, Palo Alto, or whatever. It can go in any direction, and also it is the one community where I found that it's still trying to fight and stay true to its original mission, which took us originally developers out of the basements and cold lighted badly, no air conditioning, nothing, developers out of these basements and gave us, put us at the center of developing content and creating value. It put the human being at the center. Of course, it has challenges, and I'm not here to evaluate it, but these are my 2 cents on it. It's a personal experience, and I think the people who created all of this, they were not part of any organization, it was free thinkers, each doing his own thing, writing books, developing ideas, and they got together and they just formulated the essence of something that I think was driving the community from before and will keep driving us. And that's my hope, is that we keep doing that. Thank you.
I like that. So I'm actually going to shift the conversation slightly. And I know people are jumping into. Yes, go. Yes.
Quick comment on the previous speaker. I mean, maybe I wasn't clear enough, but beyond budgeting is trying to change the way organizations, companies, including the big companies, how they operate, how they lead, and how they manage. Change it in a radical way. And if that happens, it will have a huge impact on the society and the world as such.
And that is true. One of my further questions is actually going to explore about the fact that we spend more time at work than anything else, and work should, even with our families, and that's not a value judgment, it's just a fact. And so work should be something that brings us joy and purpose. And unfortunately, in many cases, it's not. But before we go there, we've touched on, and I'm watching the chat as well. I want to bring up one of the challenges and bring forward one of the conversations, and that's around tribalism. So I've been in this community long enough to remember the Scrum versus XP wars. Right? Now, there was a winner in that war. And we have 5 years ago, we had the safe versus, well, let's be honest, probably like everyone. It was safe versus Scrum, or it wasn't really safe versus Scrum, it was like safe versus the world. Right? And we as a community turn on each other as quickly and more quickly than in other places. The number of, let's just say, comments that I get in regards to PMI, and Mark Line is here from PMI, and Chris James from Scaled Agile, and what they're doing in the space. There's this sense that I don't know if it's money is bad, right? And if you're doing it big, if you're doing it with big companies, if you're making money out of it, then that's a bad thing. There's also, and I do want to correct a misnomer that has emerged in the chat a couple of times. Not-for-profit doesn't mean you don't make a profit. Not-for-profit means that you don't pay dividends. So the owners of the company, the capital and is owned by the organization. There are no dividends that go out. Right? Not-for-profit doesn't mean that you have zero in the bank at the end of the year. Now, Mercy did make a fair point around, are some of these price points uninclusive, as in unaccessible for people? And that is a valid point. There is talking, and there's talk about the Agile industrial complex, those organizations that make a lot of money out of transforming agility. And the problem is, as humans, we form tribes. I don't mean Spotify tribes, I mean monkey tribes. Us versus them is one of the most natural things for our society to do. And if you're not with us, you're against us. I think that, and especially because we're closest to each other, it's easy to push on those who look similar to you, but just a little bit different. Right? They work with different clients, or they have a different framework. That's not to say that there aren't ethical concerns. That's not to say that there are not bad actors. I myself have lamented many of the larger players and the damage that they have done to organizations. There are definite people who go out there and sell Agile without sufficient experience to understand, and they're just installing something that works somewhere else. Sorry, I'm not on the panel. I'm ranting. I'm sorry. That I was actually trying to ask a question. I kind of got distracted into my own little rant. That's on me. So here's my question, and this is for everyone, but I would like to call on Mark, and I would like to call on Chris from PMI and Scaled Agile, as well as everybody else. I would like to understand, what have you experienced in terms of this fracturing inside the community? And what do you think we can do as a community to work towards a common goal? Because to be blunt, we do have a common goal of trying to create agility with all the capabilities. And agility, by the way, isn't just about adaptability. It's psychological safety, it's strategy, it's market, it's customer centricity, it's all of these things. So what are we doing? We all have this same vision, right, with different nuances. What are we doing to move forward as one community? So, all right. My apologies for my rant. Mark, my apologies. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And I apologize for being late. I missed this. It wasn't in my calendar. My fault. So I feel a bit, hopefully I won't say anything other people have said, but discipline Agile has always been agnostic. And we believe the choice is good, context counts, pragmatism is important. Not everything has to be Agile. Hybrid sometimes works. Pick the best tool for you. And speaking of rants, a rant I sometimes get on is this whole idea of being a shop. Everybody wants to call themselves a shop, a safe shop, a Scrum shop, a Kanban shop, a Spotify shop, even Gartner. We'll talk in these kinds of terms. No one is a shop. If you're a company of any size, you're doing all kinds of things. Even at companies that say they're a safe shop, they got tons and tons of projects. Probably 90% of the projects do not use safe. To use other things. So if you've been told use safe, then you're using the wrong tool in many cases for the situation at hand. So our kind of mission is to expand beyond Scrum, expand beyond Kanban, Spotify, and learn options. I'm an old guy, right? I used to teach the UML. If any of you know what that is. I used to teach iterative project management back in the days of the Vast Unified Process. And back then, you actually had to read a lot of books. You were expected to spend a lot learning before being trusted with a project. Certainly on the PMP side, that's the case. You have to have a good understanding of a significant body of knowledge, thousands of hours of real world experience, and pass a difficult test in order to be able to get that accreditation. And therefore, it has some credibility and trust for traditionally managed projects. On the Agile world, we do not have that same level of rigor. The bar is so extremely low that I would argue it's done our community extreme damage, because you take a 2-day cert. Now we have a 2-day cert, but we also is based on a 400-page body of knowledge. But if the bar is very, very low, and then the PMOs don't understand the Agile project, traditional project, and then they give a bunch of money to somebody who does not have significant amount of training, that's when things go wrong, and Agile's blamed. And it's not Agile's fault. It's because we as an industry haven't kind of raised the bar to say we need to invest more before we, trust people with significant mission critical projects. So
what did I say? Simple to understand, hard to master. That's why the Scrum Guide's 16 pages thereabouts.
Yeah. So if I could just finish, sorry, Evan, if I could just finish the point of all this is that I would encourage people to learn options, and that I don't just write books. I'm a consultant, and that's where this comes from. And I see people sometimes are told they can't evolve from Scrum to Lean, for instance. They can't skip a retrospective. You know what? There are alternatives to doing retrospectives for continuous improvement. And to be confined within the events or ceremonies of any particular method, I don't care what it is is really restricting people's ability to truly improve their way of working and to become high performance teams. So that's kind of our message. It's about freedom, not frameworks.
Maybe if I invite Chris to comment as well, and we have too many people in the fishbowl, so if I can ask one person to drop off.
Well, thanks, Evan. I'm Chris James. I'm CEO over at Scaled Agile, the providers of SAFE, and great opening. Talked about different strokes for different folks, talked about engagement and big tent context. And I often find when you invited me, I was interested to come because I think, you know, what is the future of Agile professional organizations? And I hope it's something beyond where we seem to have got ourselves. I think Agile professional organizations tend to look more like political parties than actually trying to progress the art. And, you know, there seems to be, there's a particular way you must do Agile and start Agile. And if you don't start it that way, or you don't do it that way, you're definitely not in the tribe, as you call it, Evan. And I've been in IT for more years than I care to admit. And but I've been in some very engaged communities, like the Java community, Solaris community, Oracle DB community, and they're very engaged, but I've never seen such animosity to others as I do see in the Agile community. I wish we could stop looking sideways and actually look forward and talk about how we can contribute. I sincerely believe that SAFE has something to contribute. It may not be in the whole, but I think there's good stuff in SAFE. I absolutely know that PMI and the investments they've made in DAD and Al Shalai's work have something to contribute to the whole dialogue. And the Scrum Alliance, Scrum.org, they definitely have something to contribute to solving this sort of worldwide problem of how do we help people work in a more humanistic way, have more control over their work and planning their work. And I think for me, Evan, it's about how do we work better together as opposed to keep looking sideways and being critical of others and the work they're doing to try and solve this problem. It's a huge problem. You know, getting to a way of working that's more humanistic will take all our efforts. And we are trying to contribute. You may not like the way we contribute, but we are trying to help the biggest enterprises in the world deliver innovative business solutions. And we focus on the individual. We help them start, and I'll admit it, with a certification. But for the life of me, I do not know when having a certification after 2 days of training said that you could do everything that was in that certification context. I mean, we have over 5,000, 10,000 pages of freely available content. And to think that anyone knows all that after 2 days of training is ridiculous. But it's a start, and it's a start of a journey. And that's one thing I don't think we appreciate in the Agile community, that going from where you are today and adapting to lean Agile practices and mindset, it's a journey. And I've been out on this journey at least 10 years, and every day I learn something. This today was a great learning event.
Right, thanks everyone. What we're going to do is we're going to split off into some groups for a bit. There's 60 people on the call, and everyone's fired up now. We want to have a conversation. So for 10 minutes, we're going to head into a group. Again, it's voluntary. If you don't want to be in the group, you can stay in the center. Can everyone who's in the fishbowl remember who's in? So we can, in 10 minutes time, we can resume. Evan?
And just very quick, I just want to add, watching the chat and listening to people, I would like to call Joanna and or Monica to join the fishbowl when we get back. There's some interesting conversations going there. And Layla,
yeah, let's reset the fishbowl. The other thing is we've got the jam boards. So when you're in your room as well, if you want to capture the stuff. But if we split into groups of 5 for 10 minutes, we'll get a lot more conversation going. And please capture that conversation in the jam boards. And by the way, Evan, loving your work.
Thanks, Scott.
We are streaming, so
It's all good. I won't say anything naughty.
I know you won't. I like to warn people. You know, if Nixon had did that, he'd still be president. That was wonderful. How are you feeling? Is the hairs on the back of your neck standing up?
No, it's. I want to give everyone a voice, and there's so many voices, and it's getting all. It's like I just trying to keep people tapped so they get to share, but we hear from everyone, and we also get to something at the end.
And now there's 12 groups all at it. It's amazing. There's so much energy. It's so exciting. And the thing is, Evan, this is about the 6th or 7th meeting I've been in where that's happened, right? I mean, I've seen, the other night, someone mentioned something about someone who was a manifesto signer, and I'd never seen Johanna so animated. She's actually I think she's going to write a blog to apologize. She kind of, the Agile 2 meetings, were just so interesting. The ethics one with Shane, really, really interesting. Yeah, I think I think Shane and Evan and I are going to meet in March to maybe do something in more of the organizational context. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And the women's talks, the lean in talks, the African talks. It's like a log jam's been released in this festival. It's just amazing.
Yeah. But it's why I wanted to sort of just have those conversations around ethics, both professional ethics and obviously like personal ethics. So I think there's a lot of hostility in the community, and just some people are venting, and that's okay. Some people have legitimate grievances, and that's okay. Need to be heard, and it's the big guys cop it in large part because they're the big guys and they're the easy ones to take it out on. It doesn't mean they're perfect. It doesn't mean they're wrong either. So trying to find that balance between creating a community that is allowed to be vulnerable and allowed to make mistakes, and at the same time operating with a strong sense of duty and ethics to the community and to their clients and to each other. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. I'm afraid I've opened a little bit of a can of worms, though.
You need it opened.
Sorry.
Nope. I'm going to go and join the
Ellen,
breakout room. Someone's asked for help.
Hey, Scott.
Someone called for help?
I called for help, Scott, because Mike Lieber there has been denied to share his video.
Yeah, could you unlock it? You locked my video.
I don't think you can share video in the breakout room.
No, I don't want to share it. I just want to turn it on.
He wants
and then it says the host has disallowed the camera.
Right. Okay.
You
Sorry.
disabled him for taking the chair.
Yeah. Let me get to that. Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
I turned you off at the beginning because you were in the fishbowl. That's why I did.
Okay.
I was in the fishbowl. Because now I understand.
Okay. You see, so 10 seconds was too short. That's what I thought.
There you go.
Better.
Thank
Wow.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna leave the room.
So I was right that you're not black.
So
and to Dove's point about how even if we might disagree internally, we're all equally focused on how we're changing the world around us. But I'm just curious about what is the intention when the groups come back?
Scott?
You're on mute, Scott.
Gosh, I hate that when you come back from meeting rooms that mute you. Can I just say, really nice, strong start. Loved it. I think Evan was suggesting resetting the fishbowl again, and perhaps moving on to some new topics. It's almost, I know it's like bad, but I feel we could probably do certification for 2 hours and it's good to get onto some other topics. So Evan, I mean, I'm not joking. I'm loving your work. The big issues out there, inclusion, certification. Yeah. Where do you want to go next? And what did you spot in the chat? And are you frozen?
Now he's gone.
I think his internet went.
No, right, Ellen, you can step in.
No, I don't particularly want to facilitate this wrangle at the moment, to be honest.
I was in a worse one in Mexico City because they're all talking Spanish, and my Spanish isn't that quick. And when they asked me into the fishbowl, I was struggling. I was looking at Monica like a fish. Right, where were you thinking of heading next, Evan? Reset the fishbowl.
My internet just dropped off. Joys of Australian internet. So continue the fishbowl. I do want to hear from Joanna and Monica because there were some good conversations happening there in the chat, which I've now lost because Zoom crashed.
I should have it.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'll take it from where it is. And
why don't you start with all female? Why don't you restart again with all female?
I like the sound of that. I also would then so talk about the tribalism, talk about getting having a conversation about getting people like, how do we actually work together? I want to end on a high though. So I want to come, we've got 40 minutes left and I want to spend the last 20 minutes then coming out of the like the tension into the more positive, what can we do constructively together and to create that cohesive, collaborative community that we all aspire to be.
Yeah, okay. So the great Harrison Owen, whom I love, said that this entire festival was about who we are and where we're going. Yeah, that might be a good question. Who are we and where are we going?
That's a much more concise question than the one I had written down, so I'm going to do that.
Don't blame me. Harrison Owen did it. The guy's like awesome. He's like the Jimmy Carter of improvement.
Guys, can I broadcast to the rooms to 1 minute?
Well, if I pull them back, they'll get 30 seconds. I'm kind of hoping that they're all having fun. They all, I mean, the ones I put them in groups of 5, so that there's enough people in there to have a debate.
Scott, have you ever had the pleasure of seeing Harrison Owen in person?
No, because I only when I started the festival, Daniel took me to him, and the part we wouldn't have had this festival without COVID. Particularly.
One of the first times I got to meet Harrison, he said, "Could we stop at the bar?" I said, "Sure," and he said, "I'll take a gin and tonic, no tonic, no lime, and a big glass, an iced tea glass." I said, "So you just want like 10 shots of gin?" He said, "Oh yeah, thank you." So. And he was great after that.
If you ask him how he found open space, he says, "Well, I had this event to do. I hadn't done any prep, and I was sitting on the lawn having a gin and tonic."
Yep.
Right. I'm absolutely loving it, guys. We're showing our vulnerability, which I like. Yeah. Thank you very much. That's my wife.
So who do you want on camera when people come back? You want the people who are on the panel? Because I will happily go off video then.
I think we said maybe start with a different panel, a female panel.
We wanted Monica. I was asking Joanna if she would be interested in joining. And I know Layla had some points as well.
Okay.
Is that okay, Chris, if you go off and we have an all-female panel to start the second half? Look at all those wonderful people. Hi, everybody. We're gonna have we're gonna try and get an all-female panel at the beginning. Okay.
So more precisely, what I would like to do is, coincidentally, I'd like to hear from Joanna, Monica, and Layla. because the conversations in the chat around what you're seeing, I think, is something worth discussing. So maybe Joanna, if you would like to take a moment and and I've just got sorry, my internet crashed, so I had to come back in. But you asked a question, or you made a comment around, I can't find the chat. It was about clients. Your clients are looking for magic bullets, and we as a community are like, it's too easy to try and sell them that magic bullet, that magic potion.
So we actually discussed this a little bit in the breakout room I was in. My clients are so afraid of unpredictability, which is an anti-agile pattern, that they will do almost anything to buy predictability. And if they think that SAFe or Scrum or none of them are using anything else, sorry, anybody else with frameworks. If they think that they will get this predictability with a framework or 2 or 3, they will do it. I mean, as I said to Mark in the chat, one of my potential clients, I'm talking to them later today, actually said, we're doing DA. And I said, I thought that DA was a bunch of possibilities and you would have to think and choose. And they said, we're doing it all. And I thought, oh God, right? So these are people who they know they need to go agile. I talk a lot about one of my clients who says, I want the agile. And he's not a stupid guy. He wants the adaptability and resilience, but he doesn't know what else to call it. It seems to be called the agile. And he is, but he, I think that Peter, I don't remember your last name, sorry. It begins with a C, maybe you'll put in the chat. Peter said that or maybe it was Maru who said that the senior leaders don't stay at the company for very long, and the middle managers don't stay at the company for very long. So the poor schlubs who are actually doing the work, they stay at the company, and they have to live with the decisions that the senior and middle managers make. So yeah, I'm hoping to change that, but I will stop now and go on mute.
No, you're absolutely right. And Layla, you were, I'm just trying to bring that chat in front of everyone. So do you want to respond?
So most of my clients are federal agencies in Washington, D.C., which, trust me, are not particularly agile or flexible or trusting of their people. But what I do there is have this conversation. I literally just convinced a client to let go of SAFe because the best answer for complexity is emergence and simplicity, not more complexity. Like, we have this conversation around, you're worried about chaos and uncertainty. Agile done well gives you transparency, which is the best way to solve problems. Like, transparency is the best risk mitigation strategy you have, because I am working with cybersecurity groups, and that's the language that resonates with them. So US federal agency, I'm going back now to do what they're calling a cultural transformation. No talk about agile. They want a culture of engagement and ownership and leaders. And that's what I get to go back and do. So it is possible, but we have to have these conversations. And it starts with us. Show up, earn trust, be good at what we do, and then explain why the way we work works for them. Agile done right, the people part of it is the best antidote for complexity, uncertainty, risk, all of these things. We have the answers, but we have to have faith in ourselves and earn our clients' faith.
And Monica, I'll ask you to talk to your question in a moment. But my stutter, Joanna and Layla, you're in the context of the conversation we're just having. You're wearing your consulting hat or coaching hat or client-facing hat, right? How can the professional organizations, Scaled Agile, PMI, Scrum Alliance, Agile Alliance, Agile Business Consortium. We haven't heard from Peter from the Agile Business Consortium. My stuff is really bad today. But how can these organizations support you specifically and the community more broadly in order to help you have those conversations and help your clients ask for the right thing?
So jumping very briefly, stop talking about certifications and start talking about what is the world we're trying to create. What does that look like? Certification should be how. The way I phrase it to my clients is Agile is the how, not the why. Nobody cares about Agile for the sake of Agile. It is there to solve a problem. So can we align our certifications around business outcomes? And Evan, I know you're doing that. I know the Agile Business Consortium is talking about it. We just need to shift really in that direction of talking about when someone does a certification, they should be able to take that body of knowledge, that skill set, and apply it into their business context. It should be the same language, not take the language of Agile and put it into business. It has to be integrated at a much deeper level.
100% agreed. And it's if I can just bring the old metaphor of job to be done. You don't buy a drill because you want to drill. You buy a drill because you want to hole. You don't run an agile transformation or develop agility because you want agility. You develop agility because you want what agility gives you. Sorry, Joanna.
So I literally this morning, I talked about defining the why. I published a blog post about defining the why before you define anything else. And it's all about business outcomes. So Layla and I, again, are on the same wavelength. But I actually have another way of doing this. I don't know if anyone here knows. I write a roughly monthly column. I'm behind on my February column for the PMI. I write mostly Agile columns, and every so often I write a non-Agile column. And what I find is that people listen to what I write. They read it, and not everybody agrees with it, which is totally fine. But they watch what I write, and then they say, tell me more about that. So I'm inviting people into the way I see the world. Is the way I see the world right for everybody? Absolutely not. But it helps other people realize what their possibilities are. And that's what I want. Because if we see possibilities, we are much more likely to start exploring, and then we can focus on the outcomes as opposed to we want the Agile.
I'm a nerd. I was about to say a geek, but let's be honest, I'm a complete nerd. So I'll often quote Star Trek, right? Infinite diversity in infinite combinations, IDIC. It is philosophy, and it is definitely true here, or it should be. I know Peter and Mirko, you jumped in. Did you want to add to this very quickly? You're on mute.
Yeah, Evan, could we do a new rule? I tried this in organization, trying to get around as many voices as possible. If you've spoken already tonight, could you just not speak, just to allow other people to speak? So if you've spoken already tonight, and if I see you speaking and you come back in again, I'm just going to chuck you out.
Okay. But first, Evan, you invited Monica. Evan, you invited Monica first, so I would rather have Monica go first, and then I'll jump in afterwards.
Monica, the floor is yours.
Okay, love the hat, by the way, or the bow. Okay, just quick points actually. Yes, it's about the jobs to be done, and and incidentally, I've spent 2 days on jobs to be done session this morning, and actually a session with the author of the latest book yesterday. But yes, so it's the outcomes that we want. It's not really the latest flavor of the month, because actually if Agile becomes the flavor of the month, and this is what organizations perceive of it, it's going to be the flavor of last month soon. And that doesn't benefit anyone in this room. Because if it's a passing fad, then it's a passing fad. And the other thing is, if we well, my point in the chat was really about collaboration. So rather than having all the competing certifications, which, by the way, are confusing to newcomers, and I think other than the barrier of entry and the cost of them and whatnot, they also add this feeling of incompetence or of you know, this imposter syndrome. You know, they kind of add to the imposter syndrome of people who could well be collaborating and you know, chipping into the community simply because they don't have all those certifications to show, even though they might have well read all the books and possessed all the knowledge it would take, you know, and could well contribute new ideas and other things. So that I think is a hindrance. And the other thing, really and truly, is just forget about the churches and really build on the community. What could we all do to actually build on the community side of things and make this grow rather than you know, focus on the differences and this is my patch and you should stay away with it.
And that's why I married that woman.
On that note,
All right. Peter, you were going to share.
Yeah, and perhaps build a little bit on what Monica said and what Johanna just said. I was talking to Joanne in the breakout room. What to me I tend to find, and I find it a little bit frustrating. I've been in and out of this community for a zillion years. We're still trying to what kind of problems are we actually trying to solve? And to me, I find it one of the things I want to achieve is that with what we've learned over the last 20 years in how to approach stuff, what we've learned using our agility, not our tools and methods, but actually our mindset, we can actually help in resolving some of the problems that the world is currently facing, like COVID, like sustainability, like climate crisis and stuff like that, because it needs a lot of doing stuff together. It needs a lot of collaboration, cooperation. It doesn't need churches and it doesn't really need tools. And for me, that's the main challenge. And if we need one challenge that actually brings us together in trying to figure out where can we go, that to me would be one of them. We can help. I don't think that we have the solutions, but we have a way of thinking that can actually overcome some of the real stuff today, not only serving customers and not only bringing more money for organizations. There's much more out there. And I would applaud actually getting out there together with each other, forget about the churches and get real stuff done.
No, I like that. And so Peter is, you're representing the Agile Business Consortium.
Yeah.
Which for those who are unfamiliar, so is the old DSDM consortium, and is in an ongoing sort of reevaluation about what's important to them and their community. So it's I think it's important to recognize that whilst to Joanna's point, yes, SAFe and Scrum are the big players in this space and possibly the punching bags a little bit. There are many other players, and I want to also I'll call on you in a second, Mirko, because I very explicitly asked Mirko Kleiner and Marina Alex, unfortunately she is unable to attend, to join this conversation as the representatives of what I would consider, and maybe I will misrepresent slightly and I apologize, but I consider like the new generation of micro frameworks, right? Lean Agile procurement, and in Marina Alex's case, selling with Agile. It's an Agile sales framework. And these are very focused, it's taking agility and contextualizing it in a very specific, in a very targeted way. And almost as this new generation of Agile that's emerging. So I did want to see Mirko and unfortunately, as I said, Marina was unable to attend. But Mirko, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. And we can't hear you, your microphone's off.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. It's just perfect timing. I would like to add what just add to what Peter said around churches, or Chris about alliances feel sometimes like political parties. We are a new player in the game, and I was curious about this whole format and having so different people in here from different angles. And I would like to share a story with you, what we are doing, and I think we could apply that in a bigger sense to the whole Agile community. And the story is about, we are solving the problem of how can we find a partner, a product, a service much more easily. And what we are doing is we are bringing the right people together. So on one hand, from internally, from the company that has to solve a challenge, but we are also bringing in suppliers, vendors, and even their competitors simultaneously in the room, and they solve the problem together. It feels weird to them, very weird, at least for the first 5 minutes. And they are also presenting and talking about everything, even the commercials and the contracts. And we, for example, let them find the alliances if one partner or vendor is not enough. And what I want to say is we need to bridge the gap. You know, you talked about tribes and this tribalism that kind of evolved. It's from my point of view, it's a natural thing. You know, we experienced a similar thing with the Lean Agile Procurement Alliance and our audience. So what we are doing, we started from the beginning conversations with Evan, with Mike, with the PMI, with the Agile Business Consortium and others, even throughout to the procurement community and alliances, and said, hey, would you be willing to share the word, spread the word together, and maybe we can learn something together and even create a bigger impact. And so to make a long story short, it's all about forgetting about this fear and getting in touch with each other, start to collaborate, and maybe, you know, something will happen. It's really the basics that we teach in every Scrum class and Kanban, whatever. It's about transparency, honesty, bringing the right people together. And I think it's brilliant event here that fosters that on a bigger scale. We do sprint with our partners. So on a two-week cycle, we see how can we develop the partnership between alliances. How crazy is that? And yeah, we are quite keen on to see where that will lead us.
So there are a few requests to hear from Kanban or Lean Kanban. So Todd, did you want to share a few thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. You know, getting back to some of the core questions, right, we've had about ethics and tribalism and some of the issues going on. In my current role, I'm chairman of Kanban University, and Kanban University is the supplier of certified Kanban training. And there's, we'll stay away from the certification question for now, but happy to take it on if anyone wants to bring it up as to how we position that and how I've dealt with it. But before that, I was also involved in many other I was on the Agile Alliance board for 7 years. I was a founder and board member and president of the Agile Project Leadership Network. So I lived the life of Brian's story there with all the different Agile groups. I was also the founder of the Agile 2005 conference, which became the Agile 2000X. That was the merger of the Agile Development Conference, which Alistair Coburn and I started in 2003, and then the XP Agile Universe Conference, which was had been started. And so that was sort of definitely lived through the Scrum tribalism and XP tribalism and tried to, you know, fought the battle of pulling that together. So I've lived through a number of these things. And then as well, I was involved in the 10-year anniversary that Alistair ran when I posted in the chat. And one of the things that came up during that retrospective we looked at, people kept pointing to this thing called the elephant in the room. And the number one elephant in the room at the time when people were involved, it turned out it was a real surprise to me, because there were people talking about all these issues, many of the same issues we're talking about now, but they're then pointing it and said, well, the Agile Alliance should be fixing that. And Rachel Davis and I, who were the two board members who were attending that event, looked at each other and said, that's sort of weird, because the Agile Alliance never took on that mission. And this was an appointed mission by everyone else, not the mission the Agile Alliance took on. And it was the same issue. It was the issue. It really turned out to be the issue of bad Agile being out there 10 years ago. Not much different than what we're seeing now. My guess, you know, despite what I'd like to see happen, is we're probably going to continue to see this type of behavior. And the reason is when we broke off in the afternoon and looked at the deeper dive into the real elephants in the room, what we really came to is the essence is that Agile had become a business. And that was a shift away from what it was when it was started, but in some sense, it was all what people were trying to have happen. And the reality is when you have a business, you've got to have enough drivers that make that happen. And those have to be there. And I think the fact that Agile is a business is the reason it's thriving. It's also the reason it has challenges. Now, what can we do about it? We can all try to do our best about it. We can all try to you know, in the end, the market will win because the bad Agile will die out and the good stuff will happen, right? And all of us, what we are trying to do is promote the good stuff and try to stay true to that, and realizing there's going to be some bad stuff happening. So the way we approach from the Kanban University perspective is we are not, you know, the one thing you know a conversation starts out wrong is when it's Kanban versus something, because it's not a Kanban. Kanban is a model of improving whatever your process is now. Kanban lives happily on Scrum, happily on Safe, within Safe, happily on a waterfall model. It's a start with what you do now. So it's a very different perspective than we're imposing one particular thing. We're trying to teach people how to think. Now, what we find is that's hard. People don't like to think, right? And our whole approach is you got to understand what you're doing now before you can try to improve it. And what we see is people really want to buy, give me the quick fix. It's a challenge. And I think Joanna was talking about people want predictability. Absolutely agree. They want predictability, except what they really want is predictability of their personal safety. Managers, leaders all want predictability of their personal safety. And that's where the resistance comes in. What we're really trying to get, I mean, actually, we believe in Kanban, we can get predictability of results. But to get that predictability of results is hard work. You got to do some work, you got to do some serious thinking, and you've got to design your system, you got to start collecting data. You start collecting data, you get predictability at whatever degree you've got. And so these are all things, we have the answers. There's great knowledge that we've all collected. The answers are there, but it's hard work to actually make it work. So I don't know, a bit of a rant, but lots of different things in there.
So we have about 15 minutes left, and I have one final question to sort of try and end us on a high and looking to the future. But just very quickly, I believe Scott is sort of summoning his inner Padmini.
Say it, Scott. That's fine.
Was there something to say, or are you just renting it?
So thanks, Scott, for being my avatar. I've been having migraine all day, so I'm not turning on my camera and not scare you all. But thanks, Evan, for hosting this. I wanted to go back to a point that somebody made when I just joined. It's about the significance of certifications, right? I totally understand the collaboration and how we can kind of co-create and co-evolve what we all have to say, but it's about the significance of certifications itself. And I had a very interesting conversation with the hiring manager recently. And the conversation was about certifications, and he was actively searching through resumes having certifications, right? Maybe 1 or 10 or, scaled versus the others. And when I asked, hey, how do you know a candidate with the certifications is better than a candidate that doesn't? And his answer simply was, hey, for any given open position, I have about, let's say, 100 resumes. Tell me how I can filter them through. I possibly just don't have the time to filter through all of those, read through, and take a blind leap of faith, right? So my only way of kind of narrowing the choice is, this guy did certifications, maybe he's committed to learning and kind of exploring the opportunities out there. So let me bring him to the interview table. So that might be one of the rationale why there is such a huge rush to get certified. Those 2-day certifications somebody just brought up, right? So I think that's worth the discussion for whatever it's worth.
No, and that's actually a perfect point to lead into the close. Right? And the final question, and the rule of if you've spoken before is now lifted. I would like to hear from everyone again: Bjarte, Ellen, Howard, Chris, Peter, Layla, anyone. Please come and join and share your thoughts. So the question is simple. Actually, the question was a lot longer, and then Scott suggested a way of asking it in a very simple way. Right? Who are we and where are we going? But before I ask you to answer that question, I just want to set a little bit of context into some of this. Human nature sucks. Right? Let me be blunt. Our clients, for those who are consulting firms, want silver bullets. The executives want safety. For those who are in professional associations, we live in a world where we're constantly pulled between what the community is asking for and what the businesses are asking for. To Padmini's very relevant point, hiring managers want certifications because and I've been a hiring manager, I've had those 100-odd resumes, and it's very hard to find the right candidate. And so humans are going to be lazy. I'm not talking about inside the community, I'm talking about the 7+ billion people on this planet. So in the context of, you're not going to change how 7 billion people think and work, right? All we have is each other and ourselves. All we have is an ability to change what's in here, right? And what we do with these. And that personal responsibility, you may, and the words agile industrial complex have come up multiple times. Right? We spent an hour talking about ethics, both personal ethics and professional ethics, right? And the importance of that. At the end of the day, it comes down to what are you personally, with the influence that you have, what are you going to do? Who are we as a community? Where are we going? And the third part of that question is, what are you going to do to help us get there as a community within that context? So this is everyone. I'm inviting everyone to come and share. I would like to especially hear from those who we heard from at the beginning, because Bjarte had some very amazing comments in the chat, which I can't find because the chat keeps scrolling faster than I can find what people are saying. So maybe Bjarte, if you'd like to share just your thought about who are we, where we're going, and what are you going to do to help us get there? 30 seconds, 1 minute.
Yeah, well, yeah, no offense, but and I'm an outside guy here, and I have maybe an outside perspective, but from where I'm standing, I think the reason for the original success, not just of Agile, but also Lean, has to do with the birthplaces of these communities, right? Manufacturing and software development. And in the early years, the only thing executives in big companies observed was lower cost, faster projects, and more efficiency. Great. You can be against that. Then this stuff was starting to scale, both Lean and Agile. And suddenly it started it had implications for executives and their beliefs and their behaviors. And then it wasn't that fun anymore. And and that is something that we are never going to crack unless the Agile community reaches out of the Agile community into business agility communities, different ones, and including the one that address what no other community address, namely the budgeting process and the budgeting mindset. This is not a commercial, it's simply a fact. An Agile transformation will never succeed unless we address what is actually the elephant in the room.
And that's why I asked you to be part of the opening panel. Ellen.
I'm going to say, I think what we need to do as Agilists is also get together and talk a little bit more and about what we've learned over the past 20 years of trying to make these kinds of changes happen. Because we have gained a lot of experience where I think I honestly think, based on my personal journey as an Agilist, there's a lot of idealism at the outset. If I just explain it well enough, people will see the light and we will all change to this new wonderful way of working. And the reality is that organizations are complicated, the world is hard, and people will continue to be people. And I think it would be helpful, and this is what I hope Agile Alliance will do, is to help bring people together to have those conversations about what have we learned together, what common experiences we've had. Have we found ways to tackle some of these difficult problems, like the one Bjarte was alluding to, that we have to work. Agile work doesn't happen in this little bubble. It happens in the context of a larger organization. And we need to look at the organization systemically. We need to look at the society those organizations sit in systemically. And I really hope we can start to come together and talk about some of those things and focus a little bit less on some of the internal conflicts and frictions and ideological wars, I'll say, that we've spent a lot of time talking about during this time together.
Yeah, I love it. Mark, I believe you came on next.
Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, so I have so much to say in so little time. I'll keep it short. The PMI, why does it exist? It's a not-for-profit. It exists to make people's careers, lives better. Project PMPs, there's data behind this, get paid better, get better job opportunities because of their designation. And Scott and I joined PMI because we aspire to be similar on the Agile side. So I loved Padmini's comments about hiring managers scanning for certifications. Now that is not a great thing to do in my mind, but I understand. I have been a hiring manager and time is important, and how do you shortlist? So it's a good place to start. I'm hopeful that over time, as people start to understand the DA Scrum Master certs and the other related certs, that people will start to look for it, and hiring managers will start to say, those people know far more than Scrum. They know Kanban, they know SAFe, they know other alternatives, and they, more importantly, they know how to customize people's ways of working for the context they find themselves in. So I'm hoping that we can provide greater opportunities, better compensation for people, that learn more about DA.
So can I just, and Mercy, I'll come to you in 1 second. You said something there that I just want to amplify. Every single one of us is here because we want to make the world a better place, whether that's the world of our clients or even just our families, to be honest, half the time. We have to acknowledge that every single person here is in this community with good intentions. And the tribalism sometimes forgets that there's a human on the other end of that. And no matter how big the organization is, it still hurts. And you may disagree, but there is an opportunity here for how can we work together to be better, because we all share that intent to make the world a better place and to bring agility and to bring like psychological safety and those mindsets to everyone else. So I just want to just amplify that. It doesn't matter whether it's, I know Scaled Agile, I know Chris had to drop off, Lean Kanban, Scrum Alliance, PMI, ABC, Lean Agile Procurement, Business Agility Institute, or any individual who's here, anyone I've not mentioned. So I just want to just re-amplify that point. All right, I've got a couple of seconds left. So Mercy.
Yeah, let me make it very quick. I just want to say, I know there's a lot of talk about certification. One thing I'd like to say with Lento, what we have done is not, oh, we're taking just Scrum certification. We're exposing our students to Scrum Alliance, to Scrum.org. Kanban University is about to come on board. We're open to collaborating because it's important for people to understand, to have exposure. I've taken my Scrum certification way back several years ago, but the value I've gotten from Martin, just taking the student through the Scrum.org structure, and Lizzie taking our students through the Scrum Alliance structure. It's a total, complete, different experience, but it was a valuable learning because they were professional Scrum Masters, Scrum trainers, and they had Agile at their heart. And you could feel the passion, you could believe them, because they were not just playing lip service. So as much as there's a lot of talk around certification, I say it's a good thing if the right person does train. And Mark, I'm open. We can have a conversation, okay?
So we are at time, and as Agilists, one of our principles is time boxing. I wish I could have invited like Peter and Todd. I saw you come on camera. I'm sorry. We'll keep the video open, and we can have like a bit of an after party and just sort of chat and vent in a safe space. But I want to say thank you to everyone, and I want to hand back over to Scott to close.
Harrison asked us who we are and where we're going. Remember Harrison's law of 2 feet. If you want to go, go. Some of the events we've had have been 2 hours long, and we've had 2 hours of after party. Yeah, come and introduce yourself. As Evan says, we're all here for the same purpose, you know, making a better world. And I think Agile can really make a better world. And I think we need to focus on making a better world. We've got climate change, we've got COVID, we've got people starving all over the world, right? That's the things we should be focusing on, not fighting amongst each other, okay?
Do you want to stop the recording and take us off Facebook?